Hello, everybody. I am your host, Scott Snowden.
Hello, and I'm Andy. Good to see you all.
Hello, Andy. This is Tea and Timbits, global perspectives on business development to help you prosper. Andy, what are we going to talk about today?
Yes, good point. I should have introduced the Tea and Timbits podcast. I know we've thrown each other off a little bit now, but this week we are going to talk about selling to the C-suite or other managers within a company. It can
Leadership,
often
yeah.
be a challenge, and we're gonna address that. But before we go into that topic this week, Scott, is there anything that you have learned this week?
Oh, Andy, thank you for asking. You know, I do have a story to share. And I was recently at a business leader, sales leader event, and there was a speaker, and I took a interesting quote away from that. The quote was to worry less about making the right decision and instead focus on making the decision right.
Oh,
And
I
that really
like
sort
that.
of that
Down.
really landed with me, right? It's like so many times we overanalyze, analysis paralysis. We think too much about whether or not we're making the right decision. And I've been guilty about this too. You know where I get the most wrapped up in this is in hiring decisions.
Okay.
But you know, the takeaway is if you're going through the right process, if you're a smart person, as we all are, you're going to be able to make the decision right. And I think also, you know, it's not necessarily about making, I guess what I'm trying to say is part of making the decision turn out well for yourself can sometimes be realizing that you made the wrong decision and failing fast and quickly reversing course or adjusting for that and regrouping. That can be, I think, a way to interpret this as well. So once you've made a decision, then don't whiffle waffle, commit to it, move forward, and give yourself the confidence to make that decision work out as best as it can for you.
Well, I really like that. I think, and I know it's not necessarily directly on the topic this week, but just lingering on that a little bit. I think that can often be something that stops people making a decision. Is that they're scared that they may make the wrong decision, and
Mm-hmm.
they're so concerned about the potential negative consequences of that decision that they often resist making a decision at all.
Yes.
And so, having that in mind of not making a decision, not not
Yeah.
making the wrong decision, but making whatever decision you make the right decision for you by taking action and adjusting your perspectives based on a decision that you've actually made is going to be incredibly valuable for a lot of
Mm-hmm.
people who are a little bit more resistant to moving forward. And
Yeah.
I think I found that very good. I've made a note of it, and I'll try and find a way of introducing that into my work as well.
And so I looked it up. This person I can't credit with the quote. It came from a Harvard Business Review article. So if you Google the quote, you'll find it there. Moving into the topic,
Yeah. It was
selling to
selling
the
to the
C-suite.
C-suite. Yes, that's right.
This at least crossed my mind because I was in a conversation with somebody recently who had just switched jobs or had basically, actually, they had not switched jobs, but the target for the product and service that they were selling um, had sort of shifted perspectives and personas. They were no longer trying to convince sort of the frontline user to advocate and want to buy and try and convince their boss to let them buy the thing, but instead to sort of go above that person and say, well, you know, VP, C-level person, I want to take this question right to you because your entire staff, your entire team should benefit from what I have to offer. And I think that's a good strategy. Instead of selling things one at a time, you sell them in groups of 10, or so the theory goes. But there was a bit of a paralysis of what do I need to do all of a sudden in order to sell differently and communicate this in a different way. And I'm no longer talking to the same person that I'm comfortable and familiar with talking to. I now have to go sometimes like skip a level and jump up 2 rungs on the ladder to sort of build my case and get attention and time and mind share and budget and whatnot. Does that scenario resonate with you? And do you think that there's a difference in what you need to do or how you would go about that?
Yes to both those questions. Yes, it does resonate, and yes, there is a difference in the way that you approach things. Um, I see it a lot with my customers and in my own business as well. Is that changing the level of the person that you're selling to, changing the approach of trying to help someone understand the value of that product or solution to them, versus trying to have a business conversation where you're talking about the greater impact and the value that it contributes to a particular department that ultimately then has an impact on XXX and X within a particular business, is a very different conversation. It is a business conversation versus a user benefit
Right.
conversation. And I do, however, feel through my experience that if you take your foot off the gas on one of those and put it on the other, then it doesn't actually benefit you and it doesn't make things better. You still need to do the sales to the end user. You
Right.
still need to have that buy-in from the end user. You
It's
still
like
need to
you were
sell
in the
someone.
room when I was having this
Okay.
conversation. No,
It
I
does
think it's
change
exactly right.
everything.
Like
Yeah,
there's a different perspective. You still have to
correct.
address certain concerns, and I think there's a different sort of filter that you go through at that sort of senior level. But you do not neglect and
No,
switch off the
exactly.
channel on the messaging that you used to provide.
Correct, correct. Yeah, that's right. I mean, that is still going to be your number one. I mean, they are gonna be your advocates in the business.
Mhm.
When you were selling to them in the past, when you were selling to these end users, you you still realize that they weren't the ones who were paying the bills. They
Right.
weren't the ones who were signing the contract. They weren't the ones who were doing that. They were the ones who were advocating that product and that product's necessity within the business, that they work within. And most businesses now, they have decision making committees, whether it's formalized or not. There
Yeah.
are multiple people within those decision making processes, and you have to keep all of them in mind. The fact that you're now talking to one of those that's further up the chain
Right.
doesn't change anything. Your sales strategy, your sales process is still the same. You just have another layer to it, and you have more work to do, and you have to start thinking about things from a business perspective and not just a user perspective.
So, what do you think that our listeners should think about, take away from this conversation, or reflect on, sort of to improve how they approach selling to the C-suite?
Well, I think one of the biggest challenges that most people have when they get into that situation is that they get scared. I'm
Hmm.
not, oh no, I've never sold
Yeah.
to this level. Oh, how am I going to reach out to them? How am I going to do this? But remember, nothing is different. You're still having the same conversations with the same people. You're still doing the same sales process. All you're doing now is you're adding on a more higher level business conversation as part of that. And so, your preparation needs to change. Your understanding of the business and the business impact and the impact on other departments, of course, of your solution or product needs to be much, much clearer.
So, so I think you're saying, like, work on the precision of your message and the clarity of what you're trying to say in that
Exactly
case.
what I was about to say. Yeah. Yeah.
I get what you're saying. I actually think that that advice is pertinent to any level that you might be selling to. And I would suggest that the only difference is that you need to you need to articulate to this sort of senior level the not just the impact on the business from what you are going to help with, like, and by that I mean not just the financial impact or the ROI
Right.
of what you have to offer, but part of that comes down to the people in the role that are going to
Absolutely.
be
Yeah.
sort of dependent on this decision that the senior level is going to make on my behalf.
Yeah.
And and you need to show that I think you can bring, what I'm saying is, you can bring that experience that you have sort of with that familiarity and empathy with that sort of quote unquote front line
Mhm.
to help you and to support the conversation that you're having with a senior level management audience.
Yeah, no, it's essential. It's essential, and you're completely right. There are very few businesses left today that have a leadership structure where the CEO or the senior management within a business will make a decision and then roll it out and force it
Right.
onto their people. There's
Right.
very few that do that. Most now they have a situation where they take advice from the end users. They take advice from the people who are going to be impacted by it, and they make a decision
I don't
based on.
know that that's true. I mean, I get
Oh,
what you're
really?
saying, and I agree with that, but I still
Okay.
think there's a lot of senior leadership who go, "Oh boy, this is really hard. I know this is the right decision, and if I had to roll this out properly, I would do it quote unquote the right way and get buy-in and articulate the business case." But I'd really just rather prefer that people listen to me and sort of. But those are the implementations and the rollouts that just go very badly.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
So
It
I
doesn't
mean,
work out well for many companies if they are still doing those approaches. But
but I suppose.
maybe I'm being very diplomatic in saying that there's not that many companies who do that anymore. Maybe there are
Well, I
more
think
than I
it's a modern business management um, approach. You those days are gone of saying, well, I'm a manager and I'm going to tell you what to do. It is about building consensus and understanding and value. I think that that's the right way to do it, and that's what modern businesses
Mm,
do. I don't know that all modern or all people that are in those senior leadership positions have adopted that mindset.
no, fair enough.
And I think that that's part of what is involved in selling to the C-suite is identifying whether or not those individuals are the right kind of buyer. If I sell you this, do you have the mindset to bring it into your organization, understand the impact, roll it out effectively, communicate that with positivity and effectiveness so that it can have the desired result? Or are you just going to buy it, turn it on, and tell everybody to use it?
Mm,
Because you know what's going to not happen? You're not going to get the renewal. You're not going to
exactly.
get the next job. So I think part of selling to the C suite, therefore, is making sure that you can identify good, prosperous, modern leaders who know what it means to bring in a new service, a new product, a new solution into their organization and
Yeah.
filter for that. If you don't see it, don't
No.
overinvest in the opportunity.
100% correct, and I have to agree with you entirely there. I think you've touched on something that could also be a very good future topic as well, and that is the sales process.
Mm,
Because by communicating those things to this leader, I mean, this leader that they are isolated at the top of their business, and they are trying to do things in the best way. They're trying to do their business in the best way, and you go in there and tell them that this product or solution or service will help them to do that in a better way, then they may, with the best intentions even, actually go, yes, I'll invest in this solution, product, or service, and then roll it out throughout my business. And then they meet with the resistance and they go, oh no, I've made this decision. So there can be both ends of it, going, yes, I'm the big strong leader and I'm going to make this decision. But also I think there are those who are more diplomatic and just because they're isolated, they don't know who to ask. They just go, yes, this, I'm convinced this is the right thing for us. Let's roll it out. And
yeah,
then ultimately it doesn't necessarily add the value that they want. So I think when we have a sales process and when we're talking to those leaders, we need to educate them a little bit as well about this is what should happen now. In order to make this a success, you need to involve these people. At the
right.
next stage, there needs to be this. These are the 5 steps or 3 steps that we will take in this process now. These are the people who will be involved. And if at the end of that, everybody is still agreed that this is the right thing to do, then we will move ahead. And then this is what the implementation will look like. And I think being prepared as a salesperson or sales manager to have those conversations at that level and go that deep with the senior leadership and have that coaching session almost with
Yeah,
them
yeah,
will almost be of greater value than whatever product or service you're actually bringing to the table.
right. Awesome. Great conversation. I think we raised some good points there, Andy. Very, very thankful to you for that. So if you've been listening, I think to summarize, it's about making sure that you don't abandon what you already know, that you
Mm,
don't think that this necessarily requires a completely different tactic or approach, and to sort of build on that, but to also look for the right kind of leader that you see on the other side of the table and be sort of a valuable consultant and coach in that process as well.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Oh, fantastic. Thanks very much, Scott. Been a good conversation.
So if you want to get in touch with us, you can find us on LinkedIn, or you can email us podcast@tandtimbits.com. Thanks, everybody.
Thanks, everyone. Bye-bye.